particularly in the service sector. It could be even in the grain or in the food grain sector. Okay? There might not be any market for future purchase and the future sale of the food grains. But in many developing countries, for example, in the oil sector, in the basic cereals like in rice, wheat, and all these basic food items, there is already a future market there. So which guarantees that yes, you can buy this much amount of goods and services at this price in future. Okay, but this type of facilities are not available in many developing countries, and therefore the government intervenes, because the government knows that what if the price of wheat goes up? Suppose this is your basic necessities, then how do you feed your citizens? Then the government says, okay, I will intervene, I will buffer stock. But then you say, oh, if you buffer stock, that means you are putting your money there. That's why you have got the fiscal deficit. Get rid of the buffer stock, let the market buy and sell the wheat or rice. But then the government says, yes, I know that this is a fiscal deficit because the buffer stock is expensive, and sometimes the government subsidizes it, and so on. So it creates a huge pressure on the government budget. And then they have got the fiscal deficit, they have got the inflation. But then, if you want to borrow from the IMF and the World Bank, they say, no, you have to withdraw your hand from the market. If the government is not there to buy and sell the bread and butter and wheat and rice, it's not your job. It should be done by the market. Market can do it better. So there are some other examples as well where you have got the missing market and where some goods might not be produced at all, which could improve the utility of the welfare of the citizens. And we also know that the agents in a free market can commit a fraud, which is the principal agent problem. Because normally, the agents may have got more information than the principal. It could be the employer versus employees. The employees may have got more information about himself or herself, while the employer may not have enough information. So because of this informational asymmetry between the employee and employer, the employee can get involved into any fraudulent activities, which will reduce the market efficiency. So the principal agent problem can become a very serious problem, particularly in the information sector. Okay? Not that much in the goods sector, but in the service sector, as well as in the goods in the service sector, as well as in the information, the economy which depends on the information, where we find a significant amount of principal agent problem. For example, this mismanaged risk-taking by the banks leading to the current financial crisis. Okay? So this is also a principal agent problem. Why? Because as a depositor, you don't know what the banks are doing. So there is a mismatch between the information that you have got, but you put your money with the hope that, because you trusted these banks. So that's why, as a depositors, you have got only a certain amount of information, but you do not know how much risk these bank managers are taking using your money. Okay? So this is a principal agent problem. Or sometimes the owners, the banks, they also don't know how much risk their employees are taking. Okay? So there could be a mismatch at different levels, but the consequences could be quite significant, which is the financial crisis, because it affected everybody. So it's not the impact of the financial crisis is not contained within the financial sector. It affected the real sector. It affected the military sector. It affected the other sector. It affected your trade. It affected your exchange rate. It affected your unemployment, and so on. So that's the problem. If there is a principal agent problem in a particular sector, particular industry, then the impact of that can affect the rest of the economy. So therefore, the government is very much careful. The government thinks that I should not let this sector to be operated or without any regulation, or the government doesn't want to give a free hand. Okay? So therefore, in many developing countries, the financial sector is owned, or a significant portion of the financial sector is owned by the state. Okay? We'll talk about the financial system 2 weeks later, so we'll discuss more. Okay? So this is just an example of how the principal agent problem can cause the financial crisis and leading to this market imperfection. Okay? And also, we know that if there isn't enough the market facilitating economic practices, and if the government is weak, or in general the institutions are weak, then the market also will function badly. Because you cannot say the government is weak, that's why the because the government is weak or the state is weak, the government is corrupt, therefore the market should do their job. Then some people say that no, when the government is weak, it is very likely that the market also will be equally weak. You cannot expect a weak government with a strong market in the same country. Okay? So both the weaknesses in the market and the state can coexist. So what the government failed to achieve might not be achieved by the market as well. Therefore, if the government failed to provide certain goods and services efficiently under the state-owned enterprises, then just by changing hands, if you just privatize it, do not expect that the market will solve it. Maybe their problem is inherent. That maybe the economy cannot operate efficiently, doesn't matter whether it is run by the state or it is run by the market. So the privatization might not be the solution for certain goods and services, okay, in this economy. Okay, so therefore, we criticize the Washington Consensus here because the Washington Consensus emphasized the huge role of the market, as if the market can solve everything, but it was found that no, if you have got if the governance is weak, then the market cannot function properly. So simple changes in the hands from one hand to the other hand will not solve the problem. And also we find that there is a coordination failure amongst various private agents, which is again, we have talked about the coordination failure before, so which means that the private outcome also might not be most efficient. And in certain areas we find that there is a long gestation period and there is lumpiness in cost, and therefore the market cannot invest in those activities where the return, the profit comes at a much later stage. So you have to invest for 10 years and from 11th year you get profit. The market cannot wait for 10 or 11 years to get the profit back. Okay, so therefore the state can operate in those areas. And also, some people say that yes, if you just if you rely on the market forces, then yes, there will be competition. But is competition always conducive for economic growth? Some people say no, because sometimes it is better to have imperfect competition. It is better sometimes to have supernormal profit, which we call the Schumpeterian profit. Okay? So, because if you want to adopt a new technology, then you have to earn profit in the first place. So to guarantee this high profit, which will ultimately ensure these technological changes, then there could be some imperfect competition in the market, and the investment returns will not be fully enjoyed by the firm if there is a spillover effect. Okay, so if you think competition is okay, if you bring technology and it will be distributed evenly because it's the knowledge, and the government will provide this knowledge to everybody, and everybody will become technological developed. No, sometimes you protect. It's okay to protect certain industries and tell them, yes, this is your patent, you hold it. And if someone wants to copy it from you, you charge something. It's okay. Maybe you're earning supernormal profit, fine. But that's how the technological innovation can take place. Okay? So it's okay to have imperfect competition sometimes, okay? Or to protect some certain industries. So it's not always good to go for market and to ensure, oh, huge competition market is most efficient. No, sometimes you violate the condition for technological change. Okay. And also we know that in the market mechanism there isn't any importance emphasis on the income distribution. Okay? Particularly if you go for privatization, many people will be losing their job in the private hand after privatization, so it will create inequality. So the market will not take care of this job losses or any welfare losses resulting from the privatization of the state-owned enterprises. Okay. Now, some evidence, okay? If you look at the private ownership, the market versus state, so there are one way of comparing it. Suppose you have got certain goods and services produced by the market and the same goods and services produced by the state, then you compare them in terms of their profitability, in terms of their rates of return to investment, in terms of their labor productivity, the productivity of capital. So you can compare the performance in various ways using different indicators as I said, whether returns to capital or labor productivity or profitability and so on. So at the same time, you're comparing two sets of the farms, one set state-owned, another set public-owned, the market-owned, fine. And normally we find that the private ownership will be more efficient, they'll be more productive, they'll be more profitable, fine. Another way of dealing with this is you look at the privatized farms, what they did, or what was their performance before, and how they're performing now. Okay, it's the same farm, but before and after. Okay, their performance, you compare their performance before and after. So I think that's what most of the people do, because it is very difficult to have the same type of industries operating under the private ownership as well as the public ownership in a country. So normally you look at those farms which were privatized, then you get the data before privatization and after privatization, and you see the changes in their performance, in their productivity, and in their efficiency. Okay? So as I said, in general, yes, they're more efficient, but this efficiency varies from sector to sector. We cannot generalize. Maybe in the manufacturing sector, maybe it will be okay. This statement is correct. In the manufacturing sector, if you look at the privatization in Mexico, privatization in Indonesia, Malaysia, and so on, where the massive amount of privatization took place, you will find that this statement is correct. But if you move to another sector, for example, the utility sector, then possibly the evidence will be quite mixed. Because within the utility sector, you have got sectors like telecommunication, you can have a sector like port, but they are quite different. The experience of the telecommunication cannot be replicated in port, because some countries may have just only one seaport, just only one, because it is geographical thing, right? And you can't construct another seaport in that country, okay? Because of the geographical reason. Now, if you privatize the telecommunication, then of course, because of this improvement in the technology, in almost all countries, there's a huge competition in telecommunication. Okay? You started with one or two companies, now there are 10, 15, or 20 companies operating in the telecommunication sector, in the mobile network and providing the broadband services and any other services in the telecommunication sector. So there's a huge competition there. But you don't expect to have the similar amount of competition if you privatize a seaport, or in the railroad, or in any infrastructure, other infrastructure sector, okay, or electricity, water. So therefore, the experience of privatization will vary from sector to sector. Okay, so first level of comparison is what is happening in manufacturing as well as in the utility sector, and within the utility sector, you have got certain utility or the service-oriented sector which are more competitive than the others. And if it is more competitive, like as I said, telecommunication, you do not need any regulation. You do not need the government. But if you privatize like the seaport or the water service, water supply, and so on, you need regulation. Because we know that by nature, of the rail network, by nature, you cannot ensure enough competition there. So the experience of telecommunication cannot be replicated in other utility sector. And therefore, the experience varied. And also, it was found that where there is a lack of competition, we found that these privatized farms, they do not have any incentive to invest or to improve the performance. If you privatize a seaport, and if there is only one seaport in the country, why should I invest? I know that whatever happens, since I bought it as a private agent, the country will have to utilize this seaport. They don't have any other alternative. Whether I invest in technology or whether I improve my performance, they will have to use this seaport. Okay? So they have got less incentive to improve the performance there. So in that sense, it doesn't matter whether it is in the hands of the government or in the hands of the private sector. Maybe the efficiency gain will be very, very marginal in those activities. So therefore, the overall productivity increase and the efficiency, the changes in the efficiency can vary from industry to industry. Okay. Okay. And also, we know that when we rely on the market forces, then we find that the consumers may be very much concerned about the quality because